there, I'm Michelle, founder of ihelpmoms.com, where we are dedicated to connecting parents to the top experts and resources to create happy, healthy, and empowered families. So I have to tell you, I spent this whole weekend reading an incredible book called The Innovator's Mindset. And it absolutely blew my mind. So I felt like I wanted to share with parents like myself who want to give their kids the very best opportunity. And I'm so honored today to have the author, the renowned speaker, an expert educator, and an innovation mindset master here with me today, George Couros.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Absolutely. So I want to dive right on in. This book was absolutely mind-blowing. If you're a parent like me, we grew up where the teachers controlled the curriculum, the principals ruled what was happening in the schools, we were judged on our grades, our class ranking, and our accomplishments and achievements across the board of what all schools were doing and what children were excelling at the highest level and the highest rates. And this book absolutely blew my mind in the seismic shift that we're seeing in the way that students are learning, and the way that they're using technology, and the way that schools can create the future innovators of tomorrow. So one of the quotes that really stood out to me in your book was you said, learning is about creation, not about consumption. Can you expand upon that?
Yeah, I think that when we're looking at your traditional experience of school and what most people that are probably watching this video saw at school is that, you get some information and then you'd have to understand, learn that information, and then some tests would come along and then you'd have to regurgitate it in some way to make sure that they knew that you knew the information. And then probably, no matter how well you did on the test, probably about 2 to 3 weeks after, you would forget everything you learned, right? And there's no stickiness to that. There's no deep understanding. And so when we were looking at this stuff, we were wanting kids to actually go deeper into their learning. And when you create something with the knowledge that you have obtained, it sticks longer to your memory and you have a deeper understanding of it, and you make some of these personal connections. And I know you and I talked before we started the interview. One of the teachers I talked about, her name is Lisa Jones. She did an assignment with students where she was explaining the concept of mitosis using an overhead projector and a transparency, which probably many people are familiar with. It's a normal teaching practice that we've done for years. And she knew it was actually, there's a disconnect, like she wasn't reaching her kids. And so her and I had a conversation, and after that fact, within 1 week, she actually had her kids explaining the concept of mitosis in a 60-second video. So you were actually limited to 60 seconds. Wow. You couldn't go on and on and on. And so you actually had to explain it. So you had to pick out the most important parts, but then you actually had to create something that you would share with the entire world. Now, the disconnect that a lot of people have is they'll see innovation as one thing and getting, doing well on a test is different. But the thing is that she still has to do, standardized tests for whatever. Her kids, and I actually didn't write about this in the book because she told me after the fact, she works in a high poverty area, is the first year she ever had all of her students pass her class, ever. And the thing was, she really tried to get the kids to, look at the content differently and how they created from it, so they would understand it in a much deeper way. And the big shift was how she looked at her teaching and how she looked at how the kids learned, as opposed to, who she got in that class that year. And when you have to share something with the entire world, it really changes things. And there's this beautiful opportunity that it's not simply for the teacher anymore. It's something you have to create for the world, and it teaches all these other skills through that process as well.
I love that. I thought that was just incredible to learn about teachers just like Lisa that are really working and helping our kids to be creative. I think that's such a fountainhead of what the future brings. So that leads me right into the next question that I found out from the book. And you stated that being in spaces where kids are actively sharing ideas actually makes everyone smarter. And what I really wanted to touch on is, how do schools like North Broward Preparatory, where we're at today, absolutely incredible learning environment, utilize technology to bring in a sharing space?
Well, you're right about the school. This is actually a very amazing school. I've spent the day here, and some of the stuff that they're talking about is just blowing me away. And I had the opportunity to talk to their students. And one of the things that we're seeing, maybe with older students, is something as simple as a hashtag that, many people are familiar with, maybe through the debates or a sporting event. But some teachers are actually using these hashtags for their classroom. So, for example, if I'm a biology teacher, I might have the hashtag Couros Bio 10. And so instead of saying to the students, hey, if you have a question, email me, it's like, if you have a question, tweet it to the hashtag. So now it could be not just me answering the question, it could be a student in that class, or if I teach that section twice, it could actually be the student in group B answering the student in group A.
Wow.
And so now it's transcending space and time. You don't necessarily even need to be in that course at the same time as that other student. And so you're kind of utilizing these things, and when you're going through that process, what you're teaching these kids is not just how to learn how to do biology. You're learning them how to connect with others, how to get questions, how, something that is powerful as social media can actually be learned for learning, not just talking about, what I had for breakfast kind of thing, even though I see some value in that too, that there is that personal connection that's huge. But it's also getting them to understand that what they share online is actually going to lead to opportunities or loss of opportunities later in life. And so little ways that we use social media that we see as so insignificant is creating opportunities. And we're really trying to, get these collaborative tools. And I think one of the shifts that I really work with teachers, that when they hear the word collaboration, they see in their eyes people sitting around a table face to face. Whereas when I want them to see that collaboration is not just face to face time, it's actually online as well. And there's a power in both. And one of the things I found really fascinating is that a lot of people found that when you did online collaboration, that it was more effective for some people, because physical, like my stature, being a 6'4" guy having a loud voice, face to face, I might actually easily take over the conversation. But on Twitter, we actually have the same loudness of voice, right? It's just, exactly the same volume. And so some people felt more comfortable sharing that spaces where they would just sit around a table and say nothing.
Oh, it's amazing.
And so it's not about, the disconnect is a lot of people think I'm talking about one or the other. When I'm saying you need to actually understand how to utilize both, that these conversations, you and I sitting here, is valuable, but we also can have, a very great conversation where we both learn on Twitter too. Do we know how to actually do both, as opposed to just it's one or the other and the other one's bad if you don't like it, right?
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that sentiment for sure. Which leads me to my next point that I wanted to talk about, is a lot of parents are really fearful of allowing their kids to really utilize technology. So what would be your advice for how to meaningfully engage technology with your kids at home and allowing them to explore that, just like you're talking about Twitter, for school usage?
Yeah, and I understand, there is, if you go on to the news or you read it's like horror, everything's horrible and, it's all bad stuff out there. And I'll be honest with you, I always tell people, what I can guarantee you 100% actually, there is horrible, disgusting stuff out there. I know this.
Yeah.
And part of it, but I also say I can guarantee you there's great stuff out there. And what's important is that you don't just teach your kids to find it, you teach them to create it. How are they contributing to the stream as well? And what is happening, there's a shift in time that's happening right now. There is this time where we had this generation where this was so new. A bunch of teachers said, this is not our problem. And a bunch of parents said, I have no idea what's going on. And we just kind of let the kids go.
Yeah.
And then now you're seeing all these problems where teachers say, okay, how do we utilize this stuff? And you're seeing a lot of parents that are becoming more active in this, and they're guiding their kids through this. And even though this is one of the things I always give as advice to parents, is that don't wait for your child to hit the terms of service to sign them up for a social media account. So most of it's 13. If you're waiting till they're 13, it might be too late. That they'll have habits that they might sign up, all their friends, and they're learning from this. What I always suggest is that, you maybe get them on Instagram when they're like 8 or 9 or 10, but you have full control over that account. You have the password, and you let them share what they want to share, but you can delete or do whatever. And it's kind of the equivalent of driver training. You would never throw the keys to your kid to a car and just say, figure it out. You're saying, okay, I'm gonna show you how to drive for a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna have my hand on the wheel. I'm gonna be here. Okay, okay, now I'm just going to back off, but I'm going to be right here,
Yep.
and kind of going through that process. And one of the things I always say to people is, would you rather have a 9-year-old mistake or a 15-year-old mistake on social media? Because the 15-year-old mistake now could be something that kid can never come back from. What I find fascinating is a lot of schools, I always say this, if I was to come to your school and I was the principal and I said, we are getting rid of the library, people would be outraged. But when I say your kid can't bring a phone to school, they're like, good. And it's like, really? You're going to take that library away?
Interesting.
And I get there's bad stuff out there.
Yeah.
And I think, and there is, and there's no denying that. And I think that's why it's even more important that we work with our kids and we help them in school and we help them as parents. And I think one of the connections here is that you have a better understanding of what I do in school as a teacher because we're tweeting about it, you're sharing it, and you have better conversation at home with your child.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that why would we take away this huge opportunity from our kids? And I think we don't appreciate that it's here right now. Right?
I think that is amazingly honest advice, and for parents today, not to be fearful, but to really embrace the changes that are happening. So I think that's incredible insight, and I appreciate that honesty. And I just really want to close today. North Broward Preparatory School and ihelpmoms.com are coming together to create a book to create powerful, productive, and empowering kids to be great leaders of the future.
Right.
We know that this school is just an incredible opportunity for that, and ihelpmoms.com is really honored to bring parents and connect them to people exactly like yourself and that expertise. So in the book, one of the main things that we're going to talk about is, what is a successful student today, in your opinion?
Well, that's a really tough question because what we deemed as success when I was a student was who went to university, right? If you went to university, you're obviously successful in school. If you graduate university, you're going to get a good job. And especially in our economy today, there's no guarantee that if I have a university degree that I'll get a job.
Right.
For many kids, what it means is there's a guarantee you're going to have lots of debt.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big shift in thinking. And I think that when we look at successful students, that could look at different things to different kids. And one of the things I talk about is the notion of strengths finders. They talked about, the chance of being disengaged when we focus on weaknesses are so much lower, but when you focus on strengths, the chances of disengagement are like 1%. It's insanely,
so key for us to understand as parents.
It's insanely high. And so I think that you have to look at what are your kids good at? How do you develop that? How do you work with them and really start there? And it doesn't mean ignore weaknesses, but when you start with strengths, it's really important. So the notion of success could look different, to your child. Like I speak around the world. I have wonderful opportunities. I never went to university for any of this stuff. Now I'm educated and I know certain things, but I look at, some kids who have YouTube channels who have, millions of subscribers and they're making a very good living and they're not even in high school. So are they successful?
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's a measure, but I think it's a conversation that we need to have all the time with one another. But it's something that we need to be open to, is that it's not exactly the same the way we looked at it. And I just heard this quote and it was really powerful, and it really makes me think about how we're dealing with all these things in the world. Is like, for your mind, you should be open to everything and attached to nothing. And it was just a really powerful quote, that there's so many changes in the world, and it's just asking questions and looking at it differently, not just saying what worked for us, what worked for my child or my student. And I think that's a big shift. Success means so many different things to different people. And
I want to close today by one of the most powerful quotes that you wrote in the book, that change brings about the opportunity to create something amazing. So from ihelpmoms.com and on behalf of George, I just really want to encourage parents to be open to the possibility of changing our own mindset, changing the environment of our home to be engaging, to talk to our kids about social media, sign them up ahead of the terms of agreement, be open to the possibility of your kids creating something that you know nothing about, and really engage yourself in their schools and the community and watch your kids flourish and blossom and grow into something powerful, productive, and amazing.
thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here today.